Welcome back from that break. This is still the AM Club coming to you live from the MX24 studios, Oleander Street, East Legon, Accra, Ghana. My name is Miriam Uduak-Menta, and we're about to get into our conversation with regards to news review this morning. And, of course, that zooms us into our news review segment. And so I'm going to get into that pretty shortly. My panelists are already seated. We're going to get into our stories for this morning. Joining me this morning would be Abdullahi Rahman M. Mordan. NDC Communications team member, and Abdul Razak Hadi, member of the MPP Communications team. Good morning, gentlemen. How are we doing?
We're doing good.
Good?
Yep.
You didn't bring my
your fugu. Yes, I'll bring your fugu.
First of all, you put on
some other time when I'm coming.
You want to take me to the north. You don't want to give me fugu. What is all this?
I mean, we'll start treating you well.
Yeah?
You will.
Yes, you have to start treating me well. Good morning once again. We have two major topics we're going to touch on, but I would like us to touch on this briefly before we jump into our two main topics. This will be last week in Parliament. There were some concerns from some members of Parliament, not for, again, it's coming more from the minority, and their concerns were that, the ministers for the various ministries that are supposed to appear in Parliament to answer some questions. There are some 300 plus questions that are still lingering there unanswered because these ministers have decided not to show up. They're too busy going for one conference or the other, attending one event that they deem more important than showing up in Parliament than the other. I remember the Speaker of Parliament, the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, who was sitting in the seats that day, did say that they can conduct government business even in the absence of the minister. Okay. But there are questions that obviously, when you consider the magnitude of the question, you know that the minister themselves or the ministers themselves should be there to answer these questions. And they've not been showing. It's not like they're not showing up at all, but most ministers are not showing up to answer questions in Parliament, and that's a concern the minority has raised. I'd like to, take your take on such conversations.
Okay, so thank you very much. I want to, extend my sincere greetings to your production team, yourself, and the entire,
Thank you.
Followers of this nationwide. You see, I don't know whether it is incompetence on the part of the ministers or it is just, disregard for their role as members of Parliament. Because we know that for every ministry, they have deputies. And so even if the substantive minister cannot appear to answer questions, the deputy can do that on his behalf. And so we are wondering why...
Seen.
Yes.
I think the energy minister...
Yes, in some instances, they do happen that way. And so I don't know why they are disregarding their role as members of Parliament, or they are, refusing to play the representative role by answering questions that are, serious to, the governance process of this country. And so I think that the MPs should take Parliament serious. I mean, Parliament is one of the most important organs of government, if not the most important. And so we must be taken serious as a nation. We are the people that they represent in Parliament. And these are significant and, important questions. And, some of these questions, the MPs get to ask them on our behalf. We actually take some questions to them to get answers from our representatives. And it doesn't look good that they, decide to ignore these questions and not show up to answer questions. And this is why some people think that we should have, members of Parliament separate and not be ministers, at the same time. That kind of a system. Yeah. Yes, this is some of the reasons. Because when you have a member of Parliament who get to be too busy that he cannot even play his role as member of Parliament, then it raises some concerns.
In response to this, the majority leader in Parliament, Honorable Mahama Yariga, did say that it's also some of these questions are questions that are highly politicized, and it drags time. For some of those ministers to come and spend all their time in Parliament answering these questions. Most of their questions are politicized. And also, he also twisted the end, because I thought that it was really deflective for him to say that we're not going to appoint more ministers just because of this your pressure. I don't think that it was very, but again, it's politics they're playing. But that's the response we got from him with regards to this issue. I'm going to take your take on this one.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I also want to use this opportunity to, extend my warmest greetings to the team and also your cherished viewers. You see, I want to, differ on some aspects of my brother's discuss by calling our ministers incompetence. The mere fact that they are unable to appear in the house to answer some pertinent question doesn't define them or doesn't make them incompetent. So, he should be very, articulative of his measure of incompetence here. It is very important that the MPs or the ministers are in parliament for the people, and at all material moments, they should be there for the people to make sure that their constitutional rights or their constitutional mandate, it is respected. And, the ministerial position is also another responsibility that is being bestowed on them. And, the kind of heavy weight that it comes with. Just imagine some ministers are there with their deputies. They have, international conferences to attend. They have, meetings to...
Which are of what kind of relevance? Because
that is
some of these conferences, they come back and they never tell us what it is that they went to learn.
The conferences are very important by also representing our country and also maybe projecting and showcasing what Ghana is meant for. Just yesterday, the transport minister was in Zambia. He presented chocolate to the vice president of Zambia. He presented chocolate to all delegates in the maritime conference that was ongoing there. It is an avenue to also project the rich culture of this country. He was wearing fugu. He presented fugu to the vice president of Gambia and also the vice president of MOUWCA. So it is very important that we must be circumspect about this issue, that it is not their wish that they are away from parliament. And anytime they are back into the country and they are in our jurisdiction, they attend to the call. And
once you ask that, and I like that you ended with the call. What is the core mandate of a minister in this country? Is it to attend conferences or to administratively run this country? What is the job of a minister?
Their core mandate is not to attend conferences.
Essentially.
In fact, I brought in the conferences because maybe some of them are out of the jurisdiction. And maybe you can be out of the jurisdiction, maybe to attend conferences, maybe to attend national calls.
Perhaps you know that, because I know, again, I'm interjecting because I know it doesn't sit well with me, and I'm pretty sure there are a lot of young Ghanaians who would not have their ministers attend conferences, which, by the way, they are not sure how significant it is to the development of this country. But when it comes to answering questions that will help the country, and again, when you look at the structure of parliament, they'll tell you that parliament is a house of records.
Yes.
When they are putting these, arraying these things together, they put there's a structure.
Yes.
So say Tuesday morning, we're going to have this minister come and speak to us and answer questions with regards to their ministry.
Yes, and you see,
so
what they do is that sometimes they will schedule you to come and answer questions. And then the minister knows very well that on this day I'm supposed to come and answer questions. But on that day, he will decide not to come.
But why does he plan? Unforeseen contingencies
we've seen.
No,
you can plan your day and something will come.
Problems are that you attend a conference.
In this case, you are not prioritizing your role as a minister than being a member of parliament. And that does not sit well with us.
That is why we're also pushing up against that dual role.
A backlog of over 300 questions.
That's a lot.
After the State of Nation address, they are going on recess. When are they going to answer the questions?
Do you get what I mean? This is very detrimental to. So again, I didn't like the fact that the majority leader deflected on this question by saying that they are not going to appoint new ministers. It's got nothing to do with appointing new ministers.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? Okay. So now let's leave that matter alone. Minority leader and majority leader will handle their leadership. Well, last week we had, for some people, great news. Some others, very disappointing news, because we are here to have this conversation. That is the conversations regarding Ken Ofori-Atta. So Interpol deletes Ken Ofori-Atta's name permanently from red notice as a wanted man. And the reasons that were cited were that the conversations were highly
predominantly political.
Predominantly political, and this was what we're asking OSP to be on top of. Why are we not getting Ken Ofori-Atta to be in this country? Why are we not getting this conversation right? Why are you not on top of these issues? Interpol deleting him shows that there has been some level of incompetency displayed here, and I'm going to have you start that conversation.
Well, so when this report came, I saw most of the NDC guys, challenging and making statements to the effect that, he's been in custody and therefore it doesn't really have an effect. And I wonder, because you see, and I'm not surprised that it is coming from them. Those who believe that, or a group of people that believes that 2,500 is better than 3,100, you should not be surprised seeing this from, that group of people. But you see, if your name appears on the Interpol red notice, what it means is that you are some sort of a criminal. And so for a criminal, it means that the integrity of the person, is to some extent diminished. So the fact that the person's name has been deleted permanently, it means that the person is regaining that kind of integrity. And a lot of people are beginning to see him as a saint, or someone who, basically is being prosecuted on political grounds and not on the substance of the matter. And so it is disheartening. But you see, from the onset, we believed that, or we saw that the OSP, tried to show where power lies, making it look like by all means, this man, the name must appear on red notice, because there were communication between OSP and the lawyers of Honorable Ken.
Which is also reason they cited that so, if you are in communications with the person, you
why must your name? You understand? So and Interpol deals with certain things. They don't deal with issues that are with military, religion, and political and other provisions in their constitution or their regulations. So they don't deal with these issues. So it is, and I saw OSP release a statement to that effect, saying that because he's in custody, it doesn't really, serve any important purpose. But you see, the fact that he's in custody and the removal or the deletion of his name on the Interpol list is going to have an effect on the extradition process that we are doing. Because for everyone to now see this case as predominantly political, there's going to be a major influence in the extradition process that we have started. And you see, we are saying this in relation to certain things that has already happened. We have Sedna Tabakulu, who has been convicted already. So I believe that he should have been the first person to be extradited. But you see where the interest of government lies. And you now get to understand that, they are just trying to be political and to persecute him politically. And this is what we call political persecution. It doesn't really sit down on the substance of the matter. And you see, these things, we believe from the onset that it is premised on the concept of oral, Operation Recover All Loot. And the last time I came here, I made a statement to the effect that Operation Recover All Loot, oral, from the onset it's, it lacked or it suffers some philosophical contradiction. Because if you say you want to recover all loot, the expectation is that you must recover all loot. It does not give regard to political orientation. It does not give regard to, the status of whoever is involved in the matter. And we have seen that Attorney General, upon assumption into office in the first 1 month of their governance, discontinued over 10 cases against their members. So this in itself defeats the purpose of ORA. Because you said you want to recover all loot and not some loot. He now came with a formula that they are now going to do, 60-40, recovering 60%, and then the accused or the victim takes 40%. And he's now also telling us that the 40% and the 60% is not for everybody. It is only for NDC members. So how do you believe in this kind of person to recover some loot for you? Look, Ghanaians are waiting for the 21-point-something billion that Oral is supposed to recover. But it is becoming, the reality is dawning on us, and we are beginning to see it as a failure. And it's a failure already, because nothing has been recovered so far. Absolutely nothing. So what are they doing? And to think that Attorney General also appeared on, a platform to make a statement that there were a lot of garbage. There were a lot of rubbish inside the oral document. That simple tells us that we are really not going to recover anything from this oral committee. And the individuals in oral committee, the chairperson.
We have moved from the competence of the OSP to oral. And I was hoping that the connection would sync properly, but it's not syncing properly for me.
The connection is that we are supposed to recover all loot.
OSP is supposed to play a role in it.
He's supposed to play a role in it,
yes,
because it is a body that deals with corruption and its related activities. And so that's where the connection comes in.
Okay.
And I've dealt with the issue of oral. Now, the competence of OSP. We have heard that OSP sat in this country idle and watched Ken Ofori-Atta left the country. And now he's blowing trumpet that there was a wrongdoing, and all of that. But meanwhile, he sat in this country, watch him leave. Nobody took him up that position as the OSP. And so it is gross incompetence on his part to, watch Ken Ofori-Atta leave the country, and now he's crying all over the country. Right? And the extradition agreement is there. We are worried that Interpol is now telling us that what OSP submitted does not sit down well with them.
Yeah.
And it is sad.
Yeah, it's
that
actually very
OSP is this incompetent.
Yeah. Please take the next question is yours.
Yeah. So it is so disheartening for my brother to mirror his conversation around the fact that ORA is not delivering upon the intended purpose that it was established to.
You want to address that before the issue of...
Let me start with the Interpol notice.
Yes, please.
First of all, we need to understand what a red notice Interpol is all about. I mean, it is a request that is sent to locate where an individual that is being alleged of committing a crime, for them to locate, and also maybe an arrest should be made, I mean, after his location. And, the Interpol works within some, 196 member states or jurisdiction. And the issue or what they listed, that the petition that should I say OSP sent for the name of Ken Ofori-Atta to be put out there didn't meet some requirements. And for me, since onset, I've always believed that OSP doesn't know what he's up to with the issue of Ken Ofori-Atta. Because if you know what you are up to, look at the charges, look at the counts, some of the 8 counts on such an individual. Look at the cases, several cases that he has been alleged to be involved in. You are handling this case like as if it's just a mere issue at hand. So I feel and I believe that OSP knows what he's doing. He's just playing mind games on Ghanaians, so that when he touches the issue, then the other appropriate authorities or body cannot take up such an issue. And that is he has succeeded in doing that. And the mere fact that Ken Ofori-Atta name has been removed from the red Interpol doesn't mean that he's vindicated. Doesn't serve justice. Do you get it right? It's just to let him know that yes, upon their review and the rules of an Interpol Article 3 and 23, it says that Interpol doesn't involve in religious and other political issues. So there is an iota of politics as far as the Ken Ofori-Atta issue is concerned.
Yeah.
And I know and I believe that the issue of politicization of this issue starts from the day OSP took up this issue. Just imagine when MPP was in power. When MPP was in power, he didn't have that courage. He didn't have that political will to take up this issue. But immediately they left power, that was when he started to pursue this issue. What kind of gross incompetence is this? If you knew that this person was incompetent, why didn't you tackle the issue when their party was in power? But you waited until they left office before you took up this issue. What kind of precedence do you want to set as an OSP? And also, you look at the release that the family of Ken Ofori-Atta released when the issue started. You realize that they stated in that letter that this was a political prosecution.
Yeah.
So the whole issue, I mean, boils down to the fact, for me, I accept that, yes, there is an element of political infiltration in it. And it doesn't, I mean, come from the government side only, but the people from the former administration and even their family members of Ken Ofori-Atta has politicized the whole issue. So it is very difficult for us to really understand the notion or the main mindset of our OSP. And it is high time. It's high time he's relieved of his responsibility and his duty.
Yes.
For us to get somebody competent, somebody that will be able to help this country to make sure that justice is brought to the people. Because the alleged cases against Ken Ofori-Atta is so disheartening. Somebody that was, I mean, entrusted with the public purse, I mean, mismanaged it, National Cathedral issues, the 307 ambulance cases, the SML cases, and a whole lot of cases. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we need to be serious.
I think a lot of Ghanaians would agree with you that it just doesn't look like we're going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Starting off like this year, you know, with this case being completely thrown out on that level.
Yeah.
It's very disheartening. But let's stay a bit on security. So it takes us back to last week. So again, some of these conversations.
Can I make a correction? Some statement he made that I find there's a need for us to correct it.
Okay, please go ahead.
He talked about the fact that the OSP handling the case makes it difficult for any other person to take over it. I think that is not, accurate. No. Because the office of OSP is not higher than the office of Attorney General. We have Article 88 establishing. Please let me make my
requested for the
point.
docket of the case. I hope you know what happened.
You know what happened, right? You know what happened, right?
And let me tell you this:
So
Attorney General can do an independent work aside the docket of the OSP. He can conduct his own independent work into the issue and then ask for the extradition, request for it.
He cannot do that.
He cannot, based off from what Streamside did say, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not Attorney General. We're all picking this knowledge from what Deputy Attorney General Streamside said a couple of months ago with regards to this issue, that they could not further the conversation because OSP was already handling it and they needed some docket to finish extradition. So
what I'm saying is that in the order of authority, Attorney General is above OSP.
So they are all playing
Do you
games.
understand?
Yes,
they're playing mind games with us. That's simply what I'm saying.
I'm going to have us move away. I have to look into this properly to understand, to appreciate where the conversation is coming from. But we go back to an unfortunate incident that happened last week, which was regarding some traders, some who have lost their lives and others who are 37 now, receiving some health treatment. Moving away from the conversation of we've identified that there's security loopholes here that we need to fill. What are the moves that you think from ECOWAS to locally as Ghanaians? What do we do to make sure that these incidents don't happen again?
Yeah. So you remember the last time I came here, we talked about the need for a substantive minister for defense. Which I don't know whether as we speak, they do not have a competent person to man the office in their party. Because I don't know why it has taken us so long to get a substantive minister.
Do you think that's a
reason why? That may be one of the reasons. I mean, these are a couple of reasons forming up this security situations that we have now. But you see, the fact that we try to align in a certain way is putting us in this situation. Why did I say this? During the inauguration of or the swearing in of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, we invited Ibrahim Traore into the country, and the questions we are asking is, what did Ghana benefit from his presence during the swearing in? Why was he here in the first place? What did he come to do, and what did we benefit from it? These are questions unanswered. So we are saying that, look, we know that Ibrahim Traore is a cool leader, right? He's a cool leader. And for a country that runs on democratic principles, it defies the democratic, tenets to have a cool leader being invited into a democratic process. I don't know if you're getting what I'm saying. Because look, there's a case, the 31st December celebration case, NPP versus Attorney General. It was a coup, celebration of a certain coup like that. But when we went to court, we challenged the constitutionality of that celebration. And we won the case. The NPP won it. That simply means that our constitution does not subscribe to anything coup.
And you
right, please let me make my submission. Please let me make my submission. Please, so you see, you people, you are now telling us that you want to change the name Kotoka to Accra International Airport on the basis that he was a cool leader, right? Meanwhile, you invited a cool person to come for your swearing in. What does that tell us as a nation?
So all of you are double standards.
So what I'm saying is that
for me on all of your parts.
So what I'm saying is that please let me make my point. If you believe that Kotoke's name should be changed, right? We're asking why you invited Ibrahim Traore, knowing very well that he's a cool leader. Why did you invite him? So you have a double standards and principles that you don't even adhere to. To have a cool leader coming to recognize your governance or your presidency, and in another form you are telling us that because Kotoka was a cool leader we want to remove him. That does not speak well of your standards or your principles. You understand? So I wanted to say that I want to use this opportunity to extend my condolence to the bereaved family. The word is bereaved. Last week I saw one NDC MP saying bereaved family.
Why,
so I extend my condolence to the bereaved family and not the bereaved.
I rose. I mean, you don't.
It doesn't
I mean,
matter.
you are going to have your turn. I don't know why you cannot take it.
It doesn't matter.
You're going to have your turn. So you have to be able to, take whatever I'm saying. When you have your time, then you say whatever you want to say. So we are saying that President Mahama and the NDC government, they should do better by getting us a substantive minister for defense. Ministry of Finance already is coupled with a lot of duties. There's a lot of pressure on that man, and you are adding issues of security to that same ministry. Definitely, we're going to have loopholes. So we are saying that look, you people should do better. You should do better. And when it comes to issues of security in terms of international borders and stuff like that, we should know who to align with and how to stay neutral in certain circumstances. Because this case, we got it wrong in the first place by inviting Ibrahim Traore into the country to come and recognize the presidency of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. I think he was wrong from the onset.
Okay. So again, I'm going to take your take on this. What's the way forward in tightening security from both ends? Of course, this is happening within the ECOWAS sub-region, and so what's the role of ECOWAS in this one? And as local security, what are we doing?
Yes, thank you. First of all, I want to, be very empathic with the families that lost, their loved ones, because they were out there to make ends meet for their family. But sadly, this reality has to hit them, and it is not any fault of anyone to for this to happen. And my brother trying to tie it around we not having a substantive defense minister as one of the reasons why this is happening. I think it is not in order, and it doesn't sit well. Because even if you had a defense minister, you are not going to tell me that the defense minister will be in Titao to stop the terrorists from attacking our tomatoes traders. I think it's eventually no. And also for us to, move beyond this issue to be able to tackle it head on. We had a president, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, who believes in, strengthening the ties around the Sahel region. That is why when we assume office, we appointed a liaison officer in charge of our Sahel region to be able to liaise with our brothers and sisters from, our boundaries. It was a step in a good direction. This is the material time or material point that, this, office is needed. And you have seen the swift response and the swift actions that is being taken from the president, from the presidency and from Ghana and also the Burkina Faso. And I believe it is a wake-up call to Ghana. And our system has failed the people, both NDC, both NPP. We have failed the people when it comes to agriculture. We need a lot of structural reforms as far as agriculture is concerned. And we know that agriculture holds the backbone of this economy or this country. So we need to put out, efforts and policies to be able to ameliorate some of these issues from happening in the future. And what can we do as a country? We need to start looking at how we can, our irrigation systems. I mean, we had a government or an administration that promised one district, one dam. It turned around by having one district, one dugout. Even some of the districts where you go there, their dugout is like a pit hole. And it is even causing a lot of havoc to the people. And we had an administration that promised one district, one factory. It became a scam, as usual. So we need to move beyond that and face the reality. What can we do as a nation? That is why His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has directed the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to start reviewing some irrigation schemes that we have in the country. And as of last week, the Deputy Minister for Agriculture, Food and Agriculture, Honorable John Dimelo, was in Ashanti region, the Akomenda irrigation scheme. We have the Garu and the Timpani irrigation schemes are all under review to make sure that we will have all-round agriculture for our people in the rural area. Because look, if you look at the annual demand for tomatoes, it's around 800 metric tons. 800 metric tons. And Ghana, we import a worth of 400 million of tomato products in this country. In the long run, it costs over 5.7 million Ghana cedis to this economy. These are money moving out of the country. These are foreign exchange moving out of the country. These are jobs not being created for the teeming youth of this country. So how can we, augment all these things and to make sure that we have better initiative and better policies as far as our agriculture sector is concerned? We must start, a massive, for me, as I said, massive agriculture reforms. Irrigation systems should be top-notch, and the facilities to store our tomatoes. You realize that day in and day out, we have tomato farmers crying out there that there has been low market, and when there is low market, tomato is a perishable goods. It perish. What can we do? The government should start looking at creating available markets at where tomato is readily cultivated. When we have ready markets, we should have storage facilities in those areas to be able to store our tomatoes for us. And I know and I believe that when all this is done, Ghana, we will start producing significant number of tomatoes to be able to sustain our economic gains.
Beyond the security conversations that we have to put in place, I think this is a very brilliant
suggestion. We need to look at how to do that. For security, recently our Foreign Affairs Minister, we have signed a bilateral agreement with the Burkina Faso authority to be able to strengthen our ties to make sure that these things doesn't happen. We know that Titao is a military, a terrorist zone. And I don't know why our traders will go to that extent. I think proper education too has to also be given to our market women to make sure that, this doesn't repeat again. And he made mention that we have glorified a coup leader by inviting Ibrahim Traoré to this country.
I think I don't want to be in that conversation. Let's stay within
that is
no, because again, he bringing it up. Maybe we want to allow it, but not.
I just wanted to say that is not talking about it. Yes, certainly. I don't want to talk about it, but I just wanted to say it's a fallacy. And
you see, I gave you a precedence.
It's a lie. It's a lie. We don't glorify.
I gave you a precedence.
Again, someone is asking a very genuine question. What was the essence of a coup leader being in this country?
Exactly.
What was the essence? We are strengthening our ties.
And I heard that.
Yes.
I heard that.
Yes,
I heard that when it happened the first time.
Yes, we are strengthening our... Because they made a comment when they were in power.
You see, his presence here was unconstitutional.
In fact, they made a comment that because Burkina Faso were terrorist mongers, they aid in terrorist activities. You remember that was when Burkina Faso withdrew from the Accra Initiative. That was the reason why they withdrew from Accra Initiative. So as an administration,
and we didn't have Ghanaians dying. We didn't have Ghanaians dying. That was the plan for us.
we must strengthen our ties because we depend on Burkina Faso for our economic products, that is tomato and other essential materials. So we shouldn't allow that ties or that relationship to die off. That's why
I
it was very
in nurturing
prudent.
healthy relationships
Yes,
and making sure
it was prudent that
some
we bring him.
relationships are.
But if it poses danger to your people,
if it poses danger, you want to
you
look
have
at
to
it,
definitely
well.
find
But
an alternative.
I also want to believe that the powers that be are making the right decisions to make sure this doesn't repeat itself. So still on conversations of the presidency, leadership and governance, on Friday, the 27th of February, the president will be giving the first State of the Nation's address. And we are going to be hearing different conversations. But what would be your expectation for the day?
You see, over the years, or let's say for the past one, year or so, we have seen promises and, high level of promise, hope, and the results that doesn't reflect the promise that is being given. For example, the Women's Development Bank, 1 million coders program, Ejumaura, initiative, and all of that. Beautiful policies. But when it comes to delivering and execution, they have done very poorly in terms of that. So I expect nothing but, less promise and delivery. Less promise, delivery, right? So that we don't have situations where after promising 800,000 jobs, you come and do, less than 200,000. It doesn't help the Ghanaian people. We voted for change and we voted for hope. But, what we are being delivered is very ridiculous. Today, if you buy electricity, 100 Ghana cedis is going to take you for just 24 hours. That is very sad. Ghanaians are crying. And I'm happy that you mentioned about agriculture. You see, we are now being our farmers are becoming more poorer in the government of NDC because they have the produce, no market for them. The price of their goods has decreased drastically, and there's no market for what they even have to sell. And so their children in the schools are suffering. They don't even have money to pay for their school fees. This is a serious situation we are facing in this country. Today, cocoa farmers has joined the line. Yesterday, I saw immigration service workers crying that their allowance are not being paid by the president. So this country is actually in a serious crisis, and we expect nothing but action from the government. And so the State of Nation address, I want to see the reflection of the zeal and the interest in taking actions and getting things done instead of constant promise and promise and promise.
Okay.
This is what I want to see from the SONA.
All right. Okay. What are your expectations for?
Yeah, so as usual, the SONA should, what Ghanaians should expect from the SONA is as usual.
What are your expectations?
In fact,
Ghanaians should expect. You start with the president to put together his expectations.
The expectations are to, for me personally, is to see the teeming youth of this country get jobs to do. And that has always been the message of the NDC and His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. That is why we have rolled out several initiatives and several policies to make sure that we bring out workable plans and workable initiatives to make sure that myself, my brothers in the village in Saboba also get something to do. And we should also be looking at how we can stabilize the whole system, our energy sector. We have been able to, make some significant gains there, how we are supposed to sustain those gains to make sure that we don't go back to where we took power from. And also, the DDEP too as well has also been settled, and we make sure that how should we continue to sustain those things. For me, unemployment, roads and infrastructure is my expectation. I want to see the SONA throw more light and more, should I say, way forward to be make sure in order to help the ordinary Ghanaian. So, and I know that the SONA is going to be a powerful one. And there will not be any introduction of new taxes. We are going to see the introduction
so
of...
if he comes and he says...
Don't even mention that. Don't mention... Atufosin told us he was going to run this country without imposition of new taxes.
Our district, housing schemes and other stuff. So for taxes, the NDC is not a party of taxes.
Don't mention taxes.
Yeah, NDC is not a party of taxes. It's the MPP that is noted for taxes upon taxes, even taxing female period. Taxing agent,
they're taxing sanitary pads.
But that is, if you tax sanitary pad, are you not taxing, the village girl who is in Saboba I mean, period.
You,
If she's not, if
please,
she's
language, please. It's too early in the morning. I
That-
beg you. I beg you. It's too
that
early in
is
the
that
morning.
is fine.
I
That
beg
is
you,
fine.
I beg you.
That is
Thank
fine.
you.
So as I said, we are not noted for that. And tomorrow, so now, sorry, the 27th. So now we are not going to see anything of that nature. We are going to
I'll
see.
be back here on Monday if they introduce
We are
me.
going to see.
I'll be back here
We are
Monday.
going
I'm
to see
warning
hope.
you.
There will
We
be
are going to
tax.
see hope.
Definitely, there's going to be
We are
tax.
going to see hope. We are going to see massive road infrastructure networks, construction all over the country, which it has started. We are going to see the district housing projects that we promised. Now, PPE is going to be tabled for the construction of some Agenda 1.1 projects. That is what you need to expect from the SONA.
Okay. Thank you very much, Abdul Raham Modan. And of course, our friend from the MPP, Abdul Razak Hadi, as well. He is representing the MPP, and Abdul Rahman represents the NDC. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for coming. We really appreciate your presence. We're back here on Monday to delve into what the SONA was about, because we're going to be at SONA to hear thoroughly what the president has for the people of Ghana, and that will be the first of its kind. The first one for the second year in government. I'm looking forward to it.
It will happen.
I'm
Except
looking
that
forward
the
to it.
taxes,
They're asking me my
The taxes is
expectations.
gonna come.
What are my expectations? Meet me tomorrow. I'll tell you all about that. Because when we're going to talk about it, I will tell you what my expectations will be. But thank you, gentlemen, for coming. This has been a great conversation. Out to you out there. I hope you picked a thing or two, and it's going to help you. We're still learning and growing together, but also we're still being citizens, not spectators. Okay, we're helping shape the future of this country with every conversation we're having here on this platform. Up next is The Plug with Killy J. Brewer.